Okay, hello there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about limits again. We're going to do an example of infinite limits. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you understand that when we talk about an infinite limit, that's different than when we say a limit doesn't exist. Okay? But we're also not saying that the limit exists in the fact that we have an infinite limit. So I have to be clear, when we say that a limit is infinite, we're not saying that the limit exists, because it doesn't exist, because it's heading towards infinity, okay? But that's different than saying DNE, okay? So even though the limit doesn't exist, what we do is we say it's an infinite limit, and then we basically write it symbolically that it goes to positive infinity or negative infinity. Okay, so again, there's a subtle difference in that instance, okay? So just be aware of that. Okay, so now with this, I want to do an example where we're going to find the limits, okay? So of the same thing. So we're dealing with the reciprocal function, okay? Notice that it's 1 over x. So again, you should know these basic functions from your time in algebra, pre-calculus, all the different algebra classes that you took to get to this point, okay? So you should be very familiar with these basic, what I call toolbox functions, or basic functions, right? So you've got the identity function, the squared function, the reciprocal function, the reciprocal squared function, the absolute value function, all these other functions that you should be well familiar with. Okay, so now, so we know from the graph what the limits are going to be, but I also want you to make sure that you do the table method, okay? So again, we're going to fill in the table, and I'm going to fill in the table with the calculator values. Again, practice this on your own. So if we put in the values for the reciprocal function, we get these values. Okay, so notice that it's going bigger and bigger and bigger as x gets closer and closer to 0 from the left. Okay, and then over here, if we go from the right, we see that as well, we're going to have the same growth, but in the positive direction. So this is tending towards positive infinity. Okay, now, so for this one, it's an infinite limit, and it's going to be negative infinity. For part B, it's going to be positive infinity. Now, here for part C, since the limits are not going to the same value, one is going to negative infinity on one side, and the other side is going to positive infinity, the limit here for x goes to 0 would be does not exist. Okay? So, we would not write does not exist for both of these, okay? Even though technically these limits don't exist, right? It's not heading towards a single number, okay? But that's the difference between doesn't exist and being infinite, okay? And that's it. Have a great day.